I was on the page left versus right, and there's this user LeVar, with a name like LeVar. He's black, and he doesn't really say much of note. He doesn't say anything noteworthy. And there's someone made a post about him saying LeVar Sapien is the master race. LeVar Sapien is the superior being, and had a picture of LeVar. Now, why would someone do that? Why would someone do that? What is... Like, he hasn't said anything interesting. He hasn't done anything noteworthy. Okay? And I see a similar phenomenon with Neil Tyson. Now, Neil Tyson is certainly a smart guy. You can go on Wikipedia and look at what he did in college and stuff. Okay? I mean, you have to be a smart guy to get a degree in astrophysics or whatever it is he got his degree in. So, obviously, he's a smart guy. But in what ways is he an exceptional or novel thinker? I mean, what new theories has Neil Tyson put forward? Has he pioneered? What are the great advances he has made? A white person who is just as charismatic and as smart as Neil Tyson, of which there are legion, gets nowhere. Right? Now with Dawkins, what you hear is a lot of people parroting Dawkins' arguments, repeating Dawkins' arguments, saying, I was convinced by Richard Dawkins. Nobody says I was made an atheist because I listened to a presentation by Neil Tyson. You'll find a few, okay? But in the main, when people talk about their being convinced of atheism, that they're talking about, Carl Sagan or Richard Dawkins or some other of those people, white people. Okay? That's what Dawkins, his foundation is. It's real persuasion. Okay? The post LeVar Sapien was a fluff post pointing out how cool LeVar was, right? There are plenty of white people who act similarly, yet because they are not black, they are not worshipped. Okay? When Dawkins is, exalted, it's because his arguments are being parroted. His arguments are being used. His ideas are being used. When people talk about Neil Tyson, they're parroting himself. Right? They make little memes about how cool Neil Tyson is himself. Right? That's an interesting thing. And I go back to Martin Luther King, as he is called. I'm just going to call him Martin. Now, Martin was an integrationist. Okay, he was also a communist. And he was a fundy fucktard. Okay, so now we're YouTube atheists, right? We recognize that fundamentalist Christians are generally stupid people. Well, Martin King was a fundamentalist Christian, right? So that's pretty stupid, right? So that's a stupid trait about him. He was also a communist. Now, I look at Rational Wiki and I look at, how YouTube atheists treat communists. They're not big fans of communists. Why? Well, because communists are not status quo, right? YouTube atheists support status quo views that come from the university. Communism, despite lots of communists existing in universities still, communism is not the way of the way in universities at this point. Right? And so they dislike communists because communists are not status quo, and they support whatever is status quo in the universities. Okay? So and so Martin was a communist and a funny fucktard. So, 2 for 2 right now. And the third one is he was an integrationist. Well, you probably think that's a good idea. I think that's 3 for 3. But you probably think that's a good idea. But still, 2 out of 3, well, why is this guy worshipped? Why do we have Saint Martin all over the place? Why all these statues that you go to? You can pay your homage. You can pay you can worship him in effigy. Worship him in the form of an idol. Why do we have that? So I see that this constant, and of course we all know Martin plagiarized his dissertation, and he got his Dr. King doctorate in theology. Okay, and of course plagiarist, and I mean, and there's evidence that he was fast tracked because he was black. And unfortunately his file was sealed, but there's also accusations that he raped some white women in a hotel. Anyway, but that's the one they worship. Okay, that's the one they worship. These are the kinds of people that they worship. Why do they do this? Now, I'll say this. I'll make posts about this. I'll say this to people, and then immediately what they do is they psychologize me, right? They'll psychologize me instead of actually defending what they do. They'll psychologize me and say, "Oh, you're just, jealous or mad or something like that," right? Which, I mean, let's say that's true. Say that's true. Say that is all my motivation is. My motivation is pure jealousy or whatever, right? Let's grant you that for the sake of argument. So what? Okay. How about instead of, attacking the messenger and questioning motives, you actually do some introspection and ask yourself, why all the black worship? Why the worship of Obama, who was not exceptional in any way, would not have gone anywhere had he been white, right? Same with Martin. I mean, the reason Martin became so popular was not because he himself pioneered a great movement. It's because the journalists and the media made him into a celebrity, right? For whatever reason, they chose him. The cameras fell on him. The journalists fell on him. Noam Chomsky, who will on occasion say a smart thing, pointed this out. Said, was talking about Slavoj Žižek, saying, yeah, Slavoj Žižek is an example of just, the luck of the draw that the media happens to descend on you in a positive way, right? Just like it kind of did with him, For whatever reason, Noam Chomsky just happened to be a popular guy and became a center of positive attention. Right? And that's kind of what happened with Martin. He became a focal point. He became a focal person. And being a preacher, a pastor, he was able to deliver convincing, well, not convincing, but very emotional speeches talking about Bible bullshit. And so he transferred that skill, that of anti-intellectual, emotional, chest pounding, drum beating, speaking, to support, the denial of free association and and all that stuff, and vague allusions to racial harmony, and this unverified idea of multiracial states and racial equality. Right, predicated on the assumption of biological equality, right? All these unproven assumptions, right? And that's what Martin did, right? And Neil Tyson was less odious because Neil Tyson actually is a bona fide smart guy, but he's still an example of this phenomenon. Neil Tyson said in a quote, he said, when he saw himself on TV, he realized he was the first black scientist who was being interviewed and asked questions, not because he was black, not because he was a black scientist, but because he was a genuinely good scientist. Well, I don't know why he thinks that. I don't know why anyone thinks that. I mean, there's plenty of other astrophysicists, lots of white and Asian astrophysicists, all just as smart, if not more smart than him. So why don't they interview him? And plenty of astrophysicists who have actually made, advances and contributions and stuff, whereas Neil Tyson has not. So I don't see really why they would choose Neil Tyson for any reason other than him being black, right? No. Neil Tyson is the smart black guy. He plays that role. He plays the role of the smart black guy, and he is a smart black guy, right? He is a very smart guy. Right, he's smarter than 99% of white people. Right, he is a very smart guy, but he's not exceptional. And so, well, we all know what's happening with him, just as we all know what happened with Martin, right? The theologian communist, right? The fundy fucktard communist, right? Whose ideas on racial integration, right? I mean, we've done what Martin said. Disband Jim Crow, have interracial, integration, and things will get better, right? And of course, he was horribly, horribly wrong, right? Who would have thought? Who would have thought that a fundamentalist Christian communist's predictions on a fundamentalist communist proposal on racial policy would fail? That his prediction, if you do this, things will get better, right? Which is what Martin predicted. Break down the barriers, and there'll be racial harmony, right? And of course, no such thing has occurred, right? Another fail, like so yeah. So I view that as 3 for 3. Anyway, and of course the worship of Obama. Obama's cool. Obama's hip. Why is he cool and hip? Well, because he's black. Okay, if you see a white guy trying to be hip like Obama's trying to be hip, it would fall flat. It would be like, oh, you're an old white guy trying to look hip. You're not hip. But of course, what's Obama? Well, he's an old black guy. He's just as unhip as the old white guys, but because he's black, his behaviors are interpreted more favorably, more positively. Right? Black worship.